everyone, my name is Rebecca from the Glitch Stitchery. Today I'm going to be washing up a Tunis cross fleece that I bought, and then we're going to be dyeing it up. And ultimately, although this is going to take a few weeks, so these are going to be, all these clips will be in one video, but it's going to be filmed over the course of like a month. Anyway, eventually, once everything's washed, dyed, and dried, it will be carded up and spun into at least 4 pairs of socks. I'm going to be testing out a wide variety of different add-ins to see how it works out. So, let me grab the fleece. It's still in a trash bag right now. It is very greasy. I've actually had it sitting in a patch of sunlight for the past few days, so it would heat the grease up and make it a little bit easier to remove. It's just a little trick. I don't know if it'll work for everyone else, but for me it works pretty well. Just make sure you have some paper towels under it because it's very effective. So we're going to be washing it up in 4 separate basins at least, possibly more depending on how well it fits into my basins. Each basin will be then put through my dye method into my larger dye, like the flat dye pot that I use. It's technically a steam pan, but you know what I mean. And then, as well as dyeing the fiber, I'm going to be dyeing the add-ins that go with it to match so that the eventual yarn will still be roughly the same color throughout, although it will be heathered. They're also going to be color coordinated so I can remember which one is which. So I'm going to get started and let's see how this goes. Alright, so all of the spinning for the Tunis X project is done. So I can finally work on crocheting the socks. And let me just say, earlier me was way overly optimistic, because I've been working on this for like 3 months and it's still not going to be done until probably end of January. So yeah, that means it'll be like 4.5 to 5 months by the time I'm done. It's crazy. Anyway, sock yarn just takes a really long time for me to spin, and then doing that at the same time as Woven November was not wise. Just no. Anyway, I have all of these yarns ready to go. So this was the first one. This one's the Tunis X with the silk and the mohair. I really love this one. This one's really soft. And then we have Tunis X and Border Leicester. Just Tunis X. And I went a little crazy with these ones because I had a lot of it and I wanted to do a full test. So these two are done using my sock yarn method. So 2 plies, well, it doesn't matter whether you start Z or S. So just for the sake of it, 2 plies Z, 1 ply S, plied together S. And then that alternate ply, that opposing ply, gives it a little more strength. And I know it works because in my other pairs of socks that I've finished, the Tunis socks specifically, the Tunis Gulf Coast native socks, there was a little bit of leftover ply of the Tunis, so I used it to make a 3 ply. It was just a 3 ply, not a 3 ply with an opposing ply. And I used that for part of the socks. And when I look at the bottom of the socks, that part is a lot more damaged than the rest of the socks. The normal 3 ply is kind of felty looking compared to the rest of it. I mean, socks are not going to last forever. Eventually I'm going to have to darn some of them. So far I don't have any holes, just kind of felty bits on all of the socks. Not even felted, just kind of, I'm not sure what the word is. they're compressed. Yeah, I'll go with that. Compressed. So anyway, 2 skeins of opposing ply. Now I had another pair of socks I made towards the beginning that were the Cheviot mohair, and I didn't have enough of that yarn to finish the socks, so I subbed in some cabled Tunis that I had spun. And the cabled Tunis is actually held up really well. So I was curious which one would hold up better, the opposing ply or the cabled 4 ply, so I did both. And since this is the test pair of socks, I'm going to just use all 4 of these and see what comes out and which of the 2 types of spinning lasts longer. Because as useful as it is to know which add-ins are more helpful in terms of making the socks stronger and last longer, if the answer is something as simple as spinning it a specific way, that's honestly much easier. So I'm gonna test both. Finally, we have the 2 plies Tunis X, 1 ply mohair. Love the color on this one. And the Tunis X mohair bamboo. I love the color on this one too. This one's quite soft. So that's at least 5 pairs of socks for me to work on. I'm gonna try to get them done as quickly as possible so I can finish these videos up. And then at the end, I will hopefully have some wear tests. It's pretty cold outside lately, so I definitely need the socks. All of my other handmade socks, I've been wearing a different pair like every day to work because my feet were getting numb at work. Where it's not very insulated and it gets quite cold, so I should be upgrading my work shoes soon too to winter work shoes, which are warmer, but the socks are still helpful. So I'm gonna work on getting those all balled up and then work on crocheting many pairs of socks. And we'll see how this all goes. And hopefully I will have some answers for you as to which add-ins are most helpful in terms of preventing felting and making it last longer in general. Personally, I think the ones without mohair are gonna last a little longer. Not because mohair is not strong, it is, but I think mohair is gonna get fuzzier than the other add-ins. So we'll see. Let's see how this goes. Alright, so I finished all of the socks for the Tunis X project. And I don't know if I've ever actually stated it in the video. The Tunis X is a Tunis cross where it's 50% Tunis, 25% Romney, 25% Gulf Coast native. I don't know why I never mentioned it, but that's what the cross was. So I'm hoping that between the Gulf Coast native, which also was really good for socks, and then the Romney, which I'm hoping adds a little bit of strength, that these will just be really, really good socks. So here's what we got. We got 5 pairs of socks done from this, and then we have enough yarn left over so we could do some stripey ones, but I want to see how they react to being washed first. So first pair. These ones had mohair and silk. When I was carding them, I carded Tussa silk, and then I also had some silk hankies that I spun into the singles, so there's double the silk in this. And this is just my basic sock pattern, and I did some shells at the top just to make them interesting. I really like this color. They feel really soft. The yarn was really nice to work with. So it's just a matter of seeing how they wear and wash. I mean, that's true of all of them, but those came out nice. The second pair I ended up making for my husband, so they're a little bit wider, and he's gonna try them out for us. So these are the ones that had the Tunis X and then the border Leicester. The border Leicester makes them a little bit fuzzy and hairy. If you spun the singles for the border Leicester worsted, or if you carded it somehow, it's a little long for carding, but if you managed to blend it into the Tunis X, it would probably be less fuzzy, but that would be difficult. And I wasn't originally planning on it, so I had spun the singles already. They were very strong singles. I actually got like friction cuts in my fingers while I was spinning those from the singles like burrowing through my skin. So the finished yarn is also very, very strong. It was not the most pleasant stuff to crochet with because of how rough it was, but the finished fabric isn't nearly as bad. We'll see. I know border Leicester felts, but I'm hoping that, well, we'll talk about that at the end. So we'll see how that goes. Then we got the ones that's just the Tunis X and mohair, and I didn't have as much of this yarn as the other ones. I guess I didn't dye enough in this color. So what I did was, on the top, I did a shell pattern, because shells actually take less yarn than the standard stitching because they have more open space. So it's just a delicate little thing, and I think it's really, really pretty. And I wrote down how to do that so I could do it again. And the only part that's really important for this test is the sole anyway, so it shouldn't affect anything. This one spun really strangely, but I think it's because I was still getting used to the wheel I was using rather than it being an issue with the fiber itself. But this one was 2 singles of the Tunis X and then 1 single of the mohair. And it is fuzzy because mohair is fuzzy, but it's not like an unpleasant fuzzy. I'll just have to see how it holds up. I keep saying the same thing over and over. It's like I can't help myself. All right. Yeah. Okay. This pair is the bamboo and mohair, and I did a little stripe with the leftover pink at the top just for an accent. So this yarn was actually my favorite to work with. It was incredibly soft and worked really easily. It was just really, really, really nice. I hope these hold up better than the others because I want to make more. I'm out of bamboo right now, so I'd have to buy some. I wish I could find bast bamboo because bast bamboo is made more like linen, so it's a more natural product than the rayon style bamboo, which is more acrylic-like just because of how they process it. That said, it did process into bats and yarn really, really well. So it's not acrylic, but it's not a totally natural product either. So I have mixed feelings about rayon bamboo specifically. But if it makes really nice socks, I might compromise. We'll see. I do really, really like this yarn. I wish I had more of it left over, but I used almost every last foot of it making this. And finally, we have the control pair. So these are just Tunis X. So I had spun the yarns for this pair 2 different ways. So we have the normal sock yarn that I do, where it's 2 plies one way, 1 ply another, all plied together. And then I did some cabled yarns, which is a 4-ply yarn. The 4 original plies are all spun in the same direction, and then you end up with 2 sets of 2-ply that you then ply together again in the same direction the singles were originally plied in. And then when you have the finished yarn, if you did it right, it kind of looks like a chain necklace. So I'm not sure which one is going to hold up better, but I used the standard sock for the toe up through here, and I find that when I wear these socks, most of the wear happens right here, which is also where most of the wear in my shoes happens. I actually have to replace my work shoes because I wore a hole through them right here. So yeah, and then I did the cabled yarn at the heel, and then I went back to the sock yarn up here. So I'm curious to see if the cabled yarn holds up better than the normal sock yarn, or vice versa, because if the only thing that determines how well these last is how I spin the yarn, then I can just spin the yarn that way. Like, that's not a difficult ask. So where does that leave me? That leaves me with 5 pairs of socks to try out. So after I wear each pair once, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in my mesh washing bag. I'm going to machine wash them cold and air dry. Now I know that seems like a cop-out. I keep thinking about this, like, machine washable socks, you can dry them too, that's the whole point. But even with the socks I made out of superwash, I don't machine dry them because then they pill. So even if it was a superwash yarn, I would not be machine drying them. I don't think you should ever machine dry handmade objects because the pilling ends up so bad. All that extra friction is just not good for the fabric. So I'm going to start wearing these this week, work my way through all of them, wash all of them, and we'll see how it goes. So I'll be back for you pretty much instantly. So, alright, it is time for the last clip for the Tunis X sock study. I am amazed that this project is finally done. I didn't think it was ever going to get done. So I have all 5 pairs of socks over here, and we're just going to talk about how they held up to being washed, well, to being worn and then being washed. I think a couple of them have been worn twice at this point just because it's been very cold. I'm not sure, but they've all been worn at least once and washed. So let's see, where's the first pair I did? I guess we can start with the cabled ones, because these were just a test to see which yarn holds up better, my cabled yarn or my sock yarn. And you know, to be honest, I think the sock yarn held up better. So you can't see it very well, but the toe and the heel were done with the cable, and then the regular sock yarn was done through here and then up through here. There is some mild fulling in the cabled areas, but I'm not really seeing any issue. Wait, let me think about that. Was it? No, the toe is not cabled. The toe is sock yarn. The heel is cabled. So now that I remember that, there actually isn't a difference. They're about the same. So take your pick. Cabled or sock yarn is going to come out about the same, I think. I will say that the cable yarn is squishier, so maybe that'll be more comfortable to walk on long term. I'm not sure. The sock yarn is a little bit more annoying for me to spin just because I have one bobbin that's going in a different direction than the rest of them, so it just takes more thought for me than cabling does, but it is more likely to come out at a usable weight for sock yards, if that makes sense. But if your only question is which one's gonna last longer, it looks like they're gonna last about the same amount of time. There is very mild falling on both. Nothing I would call felting necessarily. You can see that they've been worn, but I wouldn't worry about them getting holes too soon. I don't know, so far I haven't had any sock scale holes in them, and some of them I've worn quite a few times at this point, so I'm just throwing that out there. I haven't actually had any holes yet with any of them. The Dorset Horn blend socks are the most felty of the ones I've done, I think. Maybe you think that? Yeah, pretty sure those are the most felty, and then like the Cheviot mohair blend is second, but they're still not felted and there's no holes. They're just more fold/felty than the others. So you're probably good no matter which of the blends I try that you try, but just in case. All right, so this pair I've definitely worn more than once because they are the most comfortable socks I've ever made. They are the silk blend. So we've got Tunis X and 2 types of silk, if I remember right. Did I have mohair in here as well? Yes, I did. So silk and mohair. And there is a little bit of falling around the toe, but not as much as with the pure Tunis X. And silk doesn't really fall, so that's not really an issue. The mohair fluffed up a little bit, but not to the point where I'm really that concerned about it. Honestly, these don't look as worn as the other pairs. So I am pretty confident in recommending a mohair silk blend for socks. Just definitely be careful with washing them because silk can be a little fiddly with washing. It can react funny to, for example, hot water. Although ideally you're washing these in cold water anyway. Let's see, anything else about these? Not really. I mean, they're so comfortable. I really like these. Some of the others are just really stiff, but these are very pliable and squishy, and I love them. So, I mean, just my opinion there. All right, I really liked this pair as well. This is the mohair and the bamboo, and they're bright freaking green. I love this shade of green. It's great. So I would say that you should do a better job than I did blending the bamboo in with the wool, but that's just a personal opinion. I think it would probably work better that way. You can see a little bit of falling at the toe and heel, but not anything significant at all. These did well. Almost as well as the silk ones. They are slightly more fluffy, but I think I had more mohair content in these. I did originally weigh the mohair and the wool and the silk, but during blending, I didn't end up necessarily using all of it, and then I just never thought to weigh what was left over. I should have. But so I don't have an exact percentage, but I was aiming for 1/3 add-ins, 2/3 wool. So they should be around that. So like the silk ones were 2/3 Tunis X, and then the last third was split between silk and mohair. 2/3 Tunis X, last third split between bamboo and mohair. You know what I mean? That was the goal. So I'm hoping that they are around that much, but I did not do my math to find out for sure at the end when I was blending. So there is that. All right, so these are very soft. The bamboo comes out very, very soft and comfortable. I thought the bamboo would pill, but it didn't really, so there's that. I think they'll last roughly the same amount of time as the silk blend ones, maybe just slightly less. And maybe, I don't know. The bamboo parts look really good. You can see there's some parts where I didn't blend it that well. So there's just some parts where the bamboo is a little heavier than the others. So these ones are the 2-ply of Tunis X and the 1-ply of Border Leicester. And I did end up giving this pair to my husband, and the reason is that I cannot stand the feeling of the Border Leicester. I did try them on. Mike and I wear the same shoe size, so I could just give them to him. All I had to do was like add... See, I try them on when I'm around here, so I only ended up adding like this much for him, just to make them more comfortable for him. They would have fit before that, but he didn't want them tight. So for me, the Border Leicester is really uncomfortably itchy. It won't necessarily be for everyone. And it did hold up really, really well. Like, I would never wash these in hot water because I can guarantee they would felt, because Border Leicester felts, I've done it. But if you wash them in cold water and air dry them, they should last a very long time. Or hand wash. I've never hand washed socks because I just don't want to. But you can definitely do that and they'll last even longer. I'm not actually seeing any real issues with these looking at them. I mean, I can see a little bit of wear towards the heel, but nothing significant. So yeah, if you can handle the prickle factor, these are a good option and will last a very long time. Finally, the most disappointing pair of socks for me. These ones were 2 plies Tunis X, 1-ply mohair. I wanted to see what would happen if I spun the mohair separate. And the answer is that it is unpleasant. So, it's not even that they're particularly felty. They are very fluffy because all of the mohair haloed out. My issue with them is that I found them so incredibly itchy that I could barely stand wearing them. I am not sure why it makes such a big difference for the mohair to be blended in versus not blended in terms of texture, but that's how it was for me personally. And this is adult mohair, so again, if you use like kid mohair, it's going to be a different texture entirely, but also probably less hard wearing because kid mohair is softer and the fibers are finer, so they're not going to last as long. So yeah, I'm not gonna spin the mohair separately again. That didn't work out for me. But it is important to know all these things. So now when I make more socks, I already know ahead of time. Don't do that. All right, so that is all of the socks. I am so happy that this project is finally done and I can finally post it for all of you. I know at least a couple of you have been waiting for this one, and you sent me a couple comments saying that you were looking forward to this one in particular. And I am so happy to be done. I am going to take a short break from spinning for socks because this was exhausting. I still have some socks on the burner, but they're not hand spun socks. So we will get to that. I will also eventually give you my crocheted sock pattern. If you can even call it a pattern. It's more like a recipe. And I change the leg of the sock pretty much every pair because I just like experimenting with it. But I'll give you the recipe in a reasonably soon video, so you can look forward to that. Thank you so much for sticking with me for this project, and I hope that it is helpful to you, even if I'm not necessarily a very scientific spinner. I can't give you exact measurements or weights, but I can give you rough estimates and opinions, which they're not necessarily worth as much, but hopefully a little bit helpful. So I hope to see you all again soon, and thank you so much for watching.